Welcome to the Law Firm Practice Management Advice Podcast.
The fundamentals of business.
Join Kirk Stange of Stange Law Firm as he discusses helpful strategies, tools, and insights to grow and manage a legal practice.
Good ideas are simple.
From improving client relationships to managing your team and scaling your practice, this podcast offers practical advice for navigating the challenges of law firm management.
Shall we proceed?
Now, here's your host, Kirk Stange.
Welcome to Law Firm Practice Management Advice. We have an interesting topic today. The topic is less clients and fairer billing. And this episode today is based on an article on my blog, lawfirmpracticemanagementadvice.com, dated January 19th, 2026. And the title of the article is The Case for Taking Fewer Clients and Charging More. So as a follow-up to the episode today, go on over to lawfirmpracticemanagementadvice.com and read this article for more information. All right, but let's go ahead and jump on in. Look, many lawyers wonder how they can build a better life and have a successful law practice. At the same time, look, most lawyers want to help people. And, you know, I've interviewed lots of attorneys over the course of time to work at my firm, and I ask them why they wanted to be a lawyer, why they went to law school. And I mean, I can tell the listeners the most common answer to that question is they want to help people. So most lawyers, when they come out of law school and when they become lawyers, their goal is noble. They want to help people. They want to help clients. That's why they went into this industry. And so, look, I mean, lawyers want to have a successful law practice. They want to run a successful business. At the same time, most lawyers want to help people. And that's just the case, and that's the truth. And from my vantage point, you know, most lawyers who say they became a lawyer because they want to help people, like, that's genuine. That's real. That's the truth, okay? But it's trouble, you know, and it's hard to do both. You know, how do you help people, and then how do you have a successful practice at the same time? I mean, this is the difficulty for a lot of lawyers out there, and a lot of lawyers who are either starting their own firm or they have their own law firm, and they don't know how to approach this, okay? And so what a lot of lawyers and law firms do is they sort of fall into what I call the volume trap. So they take on as many cases as they can. And the way a lot of lawyers get a lot of cases, particularly if they're not savvy in terms of networking and marketing and these kinds of things, is they charge lower fees. So maybe they charge flat fees, fixed fees, maybe they charge hourly fees, but they put their rates and their retainers below their competition. And this leaves little room for flexibility, but they're charging lower fees. And what a lot of lawyers probably, I think, initially find is that, look, if they're charging a heck of a lot less than other lawyers, this can work out of the gates. I mean, the phones can ring, the caseload can grow, the revenue out of the gates can appear like good, but there can be a downside to this over the course of time. The downside can be when lawyers are taking a lot of cases and they're not really getting fairly paid for the work that they're doing. I mean, burnout is inevitable. And I think to the listeners, they say, well, why is burnout inevitable? Well, look, if a lawyer has a ton of cases, an overwhelming number of cases, and they didn't get paid a whole lot for all these cases, it could be hard then to do the work on these cases that are needed. It can be hard to be competent, communicative, and diligent when you have a bunch of cases. And when you're not getting paid as well, then that can make it tough as well. So lawyers spend, you know, countless amounts of time, in theory, working on a client's case and they're not getting paid, then this can result in financial struggles as well. And so, look, it can be hard when a lawyer has a ton of cases to keep up with deadlines, to call and email everybody back, to be fully prepared as they should be. And so when a lot of lawyers get into this volume trap, I'm going to get a bunch of cases on low fees, and then this will all add up to a lot of money, and it's going to be great. You know, what a lot of lawyers find out is there's just not enough hours in the day to work on all these cases. And at the same time, they're not really getting paid because maybe they got paid a flat fee or fixed fee 6 months or a year ago. Now they're not getting paid anymore on this case. And so it makes it really difficult. You're going to keep working on cases for free. They have to because you got to be competent, communicative, and diligent. But it's stressful when you're not getting paid for the work that you're doing. And then all of a sudden the bills can start piling up and a lawyer can be in a bad spot. So look, the volume trap can lead to unhappy clients because they're not being serviced the way they want to be serviced. Can lead to increased stress on the part of the lawyer because the lawyer is unhappy that the clients are unhappy and that they're not making a lot of money, not getting paid for the work that they do. So you got frustration on all sides of the pendulum. All right. And so what a lot of lawyers have to recognize, if you're starting your own law firm or you have your own law firm and you're in this, bind, if you will, you got to understand that low fees do not always mean financial stability. So if you're charging low or fixed fees that are below market value, okay, this doesn't necessarily lead to financial security. In fact, a lot of lawyers who are charging low and fixed fees and below market fees, and they're doing this volume-based business model, they're struggling to make ends meet. And so as expenses rise and collections lag, lawyers may find themselves behind on law firm bills or personal obligations. And that's just the truth, So then all of a sudden, law firms and lawyers are having troubles paying their office rent. They're having trouble paying their paralegal or legal assistant or the receptionist. Maybe they're having trouble paying their taxes, which is really bad. Credit card bills, these kinds of things. And it could be personal expenses. All of a sudden, they're having trouble paying their mortgage, their rent, other personal bills they might have. So then this pressure builds, the stress increases, and the practice becomes harder to sustain. And for many clients, this leads to exhaustion and then really dissatisfaction with the profession. Heaven forbid, there are reported stories where then lawyers start taking money out of trust accounts that they shouldn't be taking out. They end up getting in trouble for doing that because they're hurting financially. So they start taking money they haven't earned, and then maybe they get their bar license disciplined. And a lot of this can come from just sort of a poor plan on the outset in terms of how to set up and run the firm. And so, look, the premise of this article is there's sort of a different approach. And this different approach, I don't know why, but a lot of lawyers are resistant to it. A lot of lawyers are like, I don't really want to do that. And I think where a lot of this stems from is, again, the idea of helping people. So they want to help people, and so they want to charge low fees is kind of the idea. But when a lawyer gets behind on their bills and their personal obligations, I mean, the truth of the matter is it's really hard to help people when you're hurting financially. All right, so let's talk about the other way. The other way is lawyers should think about, seriously consider raising their fees or rates in some manner. Again, keep it reasonable. Lawyers have to charge reasonable fees. That's the ethical rule. So lawyers need to be mindful of prevailing market rates. I think lawyers can look at average billable hour rates statewide. A lot of state bars will publish this data, and they need to take their rates and put them in a place that's reasonable. That is at the prevailing rates and not below them. And I think that's an initial good first step. Look, certain areas of law too, flat fees, fixed fees, sort of the norm in terms of how, to set up a law firm. But in certain areas of law, we don't really know how long the case is going to take. Right, it could settle, it could go to trial. You don't know. Billing hourly, particularly like in litigation areas, probably makes more sense. And so by getting paid by the hour, then lawyers are not in this bind where it's like, oh, I need to work on this case, but I got all my money 6 months ago. And now it's like, I don't really want to work on this case because the client's not paying me anymore, right? If you're billing hourly, then presumably you're getting paid along the way, which creates this better system. But then you want to work on the case, you're getting paid on it. The client's happy because you're working on their case and their case isn't just sitting. Okay. Another thing to think about is this idea of evergreen trust deposits. Evergreen trust deposits, look, all kinds of stuff online about them. Lots of state bars talk about it and recommend them now. I don't know why some lawyers are adverse to evergreen trust deposits, and this is what it is. An evergreen trust deposit is where you get paid a deposit, like fills up the gas tank, and then when you're down to zero, the client replenishes. And they get the balance back up to whatever the initial deposit was or the retainer, whatever you call it in your jurisdiction. It's called an evergreen trust deposit. And then in theory, you're always getting paid for the work that you do. You've got a certain amount of money in trust. As you do work, you're able to transfer it to the operating account and you get paid. And then the client replenishes it when it gets down to zero again. Or could be that they're just getting low. It's not down to zero, but it's getting close. So they replenish it. So evergreen trust deposit's a good way to set up a financially secure and stable law firm. Again, I don't know why some lawyers are resistant to it. Some lawyers think this isn't the thing to do. But if you just run a big client balance, negative balance, trying to get the clients to pay back to zero, very difficult, very hard. And this is where a lot of lawyers can get themselves in a lot of trouble. So lawyers ought to think about, if they can, billing by the hour and implementing evergreen trust deposits. And again, having a fair and reasonable hourly rate, and obviously billing through the actual time. So using a timer and only billing for work done. Obviously, you cannot pad. You can't inflate your time. That's unethical. That's totally wrong, and lawyers cannot do that. But just recording that time truthfully, honestly, accurately, and contemporaneously with the work that's performed, and having an evergreen trust deposit is something a lot of law firms could implement, and it would make their firm financially way more secure, okay? Here's another thing to think about, which is focus on excellence and not value. So I think in terms of, having a successful firm, you're going to need a certain number of clients, right? Most firms aren't going to be able to just have one client, so you're going to need, more than one client, okay? But focus on doing an excellent job for the clients that you have, and versus having a volume-based practice, come up with a number. Like, what's a reasonable number of clients that you can actually have and do an excellent job on all these clients' cases and be prepared, right? And then you're getting paid on these cases, and right, clients that can't afford your deposits or don't want to pay them, then they go to the volume-based law firm attorney, but you don't take that case, right? So if you have a fewer number of cases and you're getting paid better on these cases, you're getting paid fairer, then this becomes a win-win for everybody, okay? Because your clients are going to feel serviced. They're going to feel like they're getting the attention they deserve. They're not going to be unhappy. You're not going to be unhappy because you're able to pay your bills, your obligations. You're not sweating like, oh, I can't pay my taxes, which obviously you got to pay. And so you're feeling better. You're able to return calls, respond to emails, give good service because you're getting paid for the work that you do. So again, the idea is less clients. Obviously, you're not going to have one client, so come up with a number. Is it 20 clients, 30 clients, 40 clients? I don't know. How many clients can you reasonably service and do an excellent job on, and then meet your financial obligations at the same time? And you need to come up with a number and come up with a plan. And then you set your fees where they need to be for this system to work. And then if the clients have the fees to afford your level of service, what your retainers or deposits are, then great, you take the case. If they don't, then you respectfully, decline the case, and you don't lower your fees to get the case, right? If you do this, you'll have a better law practice. You'll be less stressed, you'll be less burnt out, you'll have happier clients, and you won't feel financially strapped where you're not able to make your ends meet. And the good news will be, to circle back to helping people, you will be able to help these clients that are your clients, right? You'll be able to help them, and you'll be able to help them very well. And so that's kind of the final piece I would say. It's not mutually exclusive. I don't know why, but some lawyers think that it's like either or. So it's either I can help clients and not get paid, or it's the opposite. I can get paid and I'm not helping clients. It's like, no, you can help clients and be paid fairly for the work that you do. You just have to set your rates and your systems at a place that financially makes sense. And then the clients' cases you're working on, you're going to do an excellent job for them. Okay? So that's really the premise here. That's the topic. As a follow-up to the episode today, going over to my blog, lawfirmpracticemanagementadvice.com. Read the article dated January 19th, 2026. The title of the article is "The Case for Taking Fewer Clients and Charging More." If you read that, it'll give you more information on this topic. But thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned to our next episode coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Practice Management Advice Podcast with Kirk Stange. Kirk Stange is the president and founding partner of Stange Law Firm, a multi-state divorce and family law practice. For more insight on similar law firm management topics, visit his practice management advice blog at lawfirmpracticemanagementadvice.com.